Hello and welcome to Jedi Jingle Maker. I am very happy you came to check out this video on the Firefly FFST Heavy Relic ash body guitar that I purchased not that long ago. If you want to see the complete review video I just released, please go to the Jedi Jingle Maker channel. Also, don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, and leave a comment if you are into modifying guitars or you like Firefly guitars or any other topics that we cover in this video. In this video, I walk you through every part of what I'm calling Phase 1 modifications to this beautiful value guitar, which I paid merely $183 for. It had incredible features that I was able to work with as a solid foundation and add on all the things required to make it a solid musical instrument that I would feel very good about taking in a gigging situation live. I think it's dependable and it sounds fantastic. So we're going to go through all the changes we made. And on this particular modification, I used a few value items that turned out to have a lot of value and be really inexpensive. So it really wasn't that expensive to modify this beautiful guitar to take it to the next level. And to quickly go through some of the things you'll see in this video, I considered putting in additional trem springs in the back of the tremolo, but didn't do that. I did put in brass saddles, of course, new strings and lubricated nut, cleaned the fretboard, polished the frets with fret polish, just lightly with a paper, actually. I also upgraded the humbucker to a interesting choice I think you'll be curious to find out about. I completely shielded and regrounded the entire cavity of the guitar. Also, I redid the wire from the volume pot ground to the trem, which was a little frayed. I added some quirky new knobs. I replaced the string tree. Did some other wire repair which was needed. Also upgraded to a new 4-point connection jack. And I did some custom work around the pickguard in the previous video in order to get the pickguard off. As it turns out, you had to kind of really work to get that out from under the neck, so I just modified the pickguard a little bit in the previous video. So I hope you'll stay with me till the end of the video. Again, anything in this video you see that you find interesting or you could help me and others learn how to do better, please leave a comment. All right, let's get right into it. Hey, don't forget to subscribe, give a comment, and give a thumbs up. Okay, let's get started. I think the easiest thing to replace will be these string saddles. I'm actually going to do one at a time. So the first thing I'm going to do is replace these string saddles. It's a very easy process. We'll just unscrew them. I don't have to really be that gentle because I'm not going to use these again. Now if you look at these, they are reliced, heavily reliced, and inside the tree part, it also looks like it's slightly reliced, so I don't know. I think this is definitely a no-go. Now here are the brass roller saddles that I got for this guitar, which cost me $15. I think they're pretty nice. Here's the brand. And I put it on the other Firefly that I got and it worked great, so I'm very optimistic about how they're going to work on this. There you go. Now all I have to do is adjust the heights of the saddles. I can do that once I have the strings on using these string gauges, these radius gauges. Just make sure this is a 14-inch. I already measured it. This is a 14 to 15-inch radius at the top, so I'll get it something like that on the strings. And we should be in good shape. Get a close-up of how that looks. Oh. Much better and rock solid compared to those other ones. This will be much better situation. The next order of business is to take these tuners off and then we'll add on the new tuners. Now let's take out the inserts. One of them fell out. You can see they have, these old style tuners have these inserts. Use a screwdriver to pop them out typically. Now something I should mention about these holes is that they are 8.5 millimeters. That's smaller than a standard 10.5 millimeter tuning hole. So as you get new tuners for this guitar, you want to make sure you get the right size. Use this tuning, this truss rod adjuster. See if I can't shimmy this thing out. This one's giving me a hard time. All right, let's try this one. Oh, that was easy. That's how it's supposed to go. This one is stuck. I need something different for that. Okay, that one was just a little bit stuck with a pair of needle nose pliers. I was able to jimmy it out. Okay, now let's take off those string trees and replace them with our new Graphite, Graphtech Graphite string trees. And in fact, I'm not going to replace them both because I don't think we need to with these new tuners that I have. The hip shot tuners are staggered. So that means that there'll be a much steeper break angle. This is a dense wood. You have to be careful you don't strip. You could always take it out with the by turning the head with pliers if we needed to, but we don't want to have to do that. I'm not sure if this is any good, the metal for these screws, so be careful you don't strip them. You can see it's coming out slowly but surely. I'm just trying to take my time. This wood sure is dense. I mean, this is a heavier guitar for sure, but for that extra weight, what you get is a very, very resonant body. This thing resonates like crazy. Very excited to see what different pickups will do in it, just because of that. Okay, let's put in the Graphtech. Okay, so here are the Graphtech saddles. You can see it comes in a package that has two little black string trees, 2 screws, 3 screws. Looks like one screw is a little shorter than the others. Okay, now in order to figure out which screw from the package I should use, I took the existing screw and I compared it with the length of the screws and found out this one is just right. I'm going to make sure you have the right size screwdriver. Nice and solid. I also have one left over for my next project. Now, if I were to use these, I would compare them with the screw from the previous string tree, and if this is longer, I would drill the hole, tape off a drill bit, and drill a hole just deep enough to account for the additional length so you don't crack the wood. Now this is a bit of a ritual I do. I basically collect the parts from these modifications and I put them into bags like this, and I put this into a box and they just sit there. That's the ritual. I'm not sure why I keep them, except for every once in a while I'll need a part. You might have noticed I wasn't that careful about screws and stuff dropping on the floor, but I'll find all those. Just a few drop down. But you never know when you're going to need something, and although most of this is definitely not needed, every once in a while there's a type of a thing that is in here that you need, so I hang on to it. It doesn't really take up that much space as long as you have it organized. Like these little springs, for instance. You never know when you'll need a little spring on a bridge or something or a pickup. They come in really handy. It's time to clean the fretboard. I use this stuff. It's called Frine. It's fret polishing stuff. And comes with this F1 oil, which you use to clean. And it also comes with this fret polishing compound. I'm also going to, in the next video, the second wave of modifications to this guitar, I'm going to take out the rotary tool and I'm going to polish the frets. You can do that by covering them with this thing. You put on, not this type, but actually a thing called Jeweler's Rouge on the rotary tool, and use that to go back and forth and polish up each one of these stainless steel frets, and they'll come out super smooth. They're pretty good right out of the box. I don't have any complaints with playability, so I'm not going to do anything to them right now. I'm just going to go ahead and polish them with this to remove any tarnish and make them nice and smooth. This is a real easy way to do that. And then I'll use this to come back and clean the board. It will be interesting to see how dirty or not dirty this fretboard is. The last Firefly I got, it actually was not that dirty. Although the strings did make my fingers kind of black on the fingers just slightly from playing them. They were a bit oxidized. You know, not sure what that means. This guitar, I can tell by the serial number, was made in Factory 6 in November of 2023. So it's not that old of a guitar, so it's not like it was sitting around, but that's what it is. All right, let's get into cleaning and polishing it. Okay, wow, they polished up really, really nicely. Now I'm going to put on some of that fret cleaning oil, and we will remove any of the polishing compound that's still on there. Okay, next let's shield the cavity. I've already taken most of these screws out in the last video, so I only have a couple to remove in order to get started. It's a problematic wire. I'm going to go ahead and just replace this wire because it's got a poor solder connection on the other side as well. Okay, now I just use a nice flathead screwdriver to knock away any of the extra splinters or material that might be here. Won't much matter because I am covering this all up with copper shielding. Now these are the trem screws, believe it or not, that come through from the claw. They come up this way and they actually protrude through the inside of the cavity here. We just want to make sure we don't have any sawdust, etc. underneath. We're going to put the shielding. Okay, let's get started. A couple things you need for this job. Copper foil has to be two sides conductive both on the sticky side and on the shiny side. And a pair of scissors. You just take your time and make sure everything gets covered up. This copper tape is pretty easy to work with. You just have to be a little careful not to tear it. You can see how it tore on the edge there. It's a little bit delicate. One roll goes a long way if you don't waste it. Okay, here we go. Okay, continuing on. I actually ran out of the stuff that I use to do the shielding, so I had to order more off of Amazon, but it arrived. So let's get to it. This cavity is only a few little pieces away from being complete. I do like to make sure I get everything, and I'm going to make sure that I get inside here. I want that copper shielding to be seen through that little Pickguard modification that I made around the bottom here. I think it looks good that way. And I'm just going to cut rather small pieces to get this job done, the remaining areas. Now I'm putting these little tabs over the edge. I'm pretty much finished in order to make contact with the shielding I'm going to put onto the pickguard. Trying to decide where I'm going to do this. I always like to get a couple around the body if I can, but that should be good. Now the next thing I want to do is take a look inside this jack. The issue is that the plug will not completely stick in there. It doesn't click. It makes a good connection, but it doesn't click. I'll show you what I mean. Just barely. Now that could be a lot of things, but I want to solve it now. I actually got a replacement Tone Pro jack to put in there, but let's see what's going on. I'm going to show you a little trick I learned from Music and Gear channel that I think is really clever. Wouldn't have thought of it unless he had shown it, but we just... Interesting. It's nice and clean in there. But you just take the plug after it's out of the body and see if it clicks then. And it does. Alright, and you can see by this that the part that would be touching is this little spot right here. And if I stick it in, now yeah. All right, I believe that is easy enough to fix. And in fact, I'm just going to go ahead and tape this up here so it doesn't rattle all over the place while I do this. Then I'm going to take a Dremel tool and carve out a little of the wood in here so that this jack will clear the plate, because, well, now that I think about it, maybe the easier thing to do is to just extend a little more of this jack out beyond this nut here. See, that would probably be the easiest thing to do. Let me give that a try first, and if not, then I'll break out the Dremel tool and get nutty with it. Okay, so I got the right tool, number 12. I really don't mind it sticking out beyond the jack plate just a little bit more, and this seems like the most simple fix. Now I could go through and replace the tone pot, but this one I think will work perfectly well, so I'll wait for another day to do that particular upgrade. That fixes it. Easy enough. Make sure that this is nice and tight. Interesting, I poked into the paint there, but you'd never know. Okay, let's do the final check. Oh, that doesn't work at all. Now it won't go in at all. Okay. Let's try that again. Oh, that's because I have this pointing up and it hits, this side has to be up. Okay, lesson learned. All right, so that fixed it. Okay, so I am going to shield the pickguard, but before I do that, I want to take care of the pickups and any soldering I need to do on these pots. And that's just simply because right now they're secured on the pickguard and I don't have to worry about them sliding around. It's really important when you're soldering. I'm fairly new to soldering, but I'm trying to get good at it. I've been watching videos on YouTube. We'll see how that goes, but I understand a couple of things about it now. And I know that you need to have it in a surface where it's not moving all around so you can make a nice even heat is the reason. And you want to see the solder get shiny. You should heat up the material, then put the solder to the material. I learned a whole bunch about it, but first thing I want to do is take out this humbucker. Even though the humbucker was decent, it's not going to compare, I don't think, to this. This is an old pickup case. This is not a Nazgul. This Nazgul is what replaced this. This is a Seymour, oh, not a Seymour Duncan. This is a DiMarzio tone zone. And you're able to coil tap this one, but I'm going to just wire it straight through so it's easy. I'm not going to try to coil tap it. I'll show you exactly how I do that. Before I do that, let's get this old humbucker out. Okay, I had to wrestle to get that thing out. Cut this little zip tie. And if you look very closely, you can see that this has two wires. This is not a splittable humbucker. It's just a two-wire humbucker. One goes to this position on the 5-way switch. One is grounded to the side of this 5-way switch, right to the 5-way switch. Not a great weld there, but we'll do better. And then if you look at this little black wire that comes off of the 5-way switch, that grounds it back to this pot. And then that pot is grounded to this pot, and this pot is grounded to that pot. So everything is grounded together. Nice work there. I'm going to simply remove this pickup and put on the new one. I'll show you every step of the way, but in order to do pickup welding, you really just need to spend a little bit of money and get something. This is what I picked out. You can pick out anything that accomplishes this goal. I don't know anything about these other than I've had good luck going to that place, Harbor Freight, to get inexpensive stuff that seems to work in this type of equipment. So I got this. This is a Schneider, Schneider soldering tool, and it comes with a base on it too, and it wasn't that expensive. I think it was like $40, $30, something like that. But it allows you to control the temperature, and where you want to get the temperature is right there on 700 degrees. It's the one that I have found works the best and was recommended on a couple of videos that I watched. Okay, now if you are a veteran solderer of pickups, please tell me what I'm doing right, what I'm doing wrong. I want to know, I want to learn. I'm in the process of learning. It wasn't that long ago that I was kind of intimidated, actually, I'm a little embarrassed to say, to do pickup changes. I've always had them done by somebody else because I thought, oh, I might mess it up, it won't sound right, whatever. I got past all those stigmas, and now this will be my 4th replacement. And it was very easy. I'm hoping to pass it on to you, but I think it really starts with having a decent tool to work with. So this one gets hot pretty quick. Grab the solder so I have that ready. You can use a thicker solder than this, but from what I was told, it's a messy way to go, and this seems thick enough for me. This is the solder that has the lead in it and all the good stuff, I believe. It's worked very well, and it's been very easy to work with. Now, when I work with this stuff, I don't know, it's got lead in it, I don't know much about much, but I always have a fan that's on over there full speed, and I have a window open, so I have a positive flow air going out, just in case I don't want to be breathing in any of this stuff. Did I mention how fun it is to do this stuff? I've really started to enjoy making my instrument into something that I can express what I want to express in my music. Alright, let's get this turned on. Little red light comes on. Got it set to 700, nice and hot. We won't need that right now. All we're going to do right now is remove the wires that connect this. That's one. That's two. Okay, pretty easy. And there is what we're dealing with. One little ground and the main line. I don't know what that is on it. Some kind of residue, but it's shiny all around the base and only really weathered on the top. Probably the only place you need it to be weathered if you're trying to antique it anyway. Alright, that was pretty easy. Now let's take out the DiMarzio and get it ready to install. Okay, I'll put a link in the description for a more detailed video on this from Seymour Duncan that I used to learn about this, but I'll tell you the colors on, this is on DiMarzio and on Seymour Duncan, how to do it. And it's not that complicated. I'll show you exactly how I do it. The main tool you need is something like this, which is a stripper capable of stripping like 20 to 22 gauge, 20 to 24 gauge wire, stripping it, and then also preferably one with a crimping capability like this, and I'll show you what that's used for in a second. As I ground the pot to the cavity to connect the shielding connection, I'll use the crimpers on the little eye connector that I use there. Okay, so here's the drill. There are 5 wires. One is this uncovered wire. That's ground. So green is another, you connect that to ground. Then red and white. This is a splittable humbucker, so you can use it to, oh, I gotta turn off the solder. I always forget to do that. You don't want to leave it on. So I'll connect the red and the white, and then the black goes to the terminal. So the green's going to connect to the side. These two will be just tied to each other. I'll cover them up, and this one is going to be what goes to the actual point on the 5-way switch. All right, and just to be good, I'm going to tape this down so it doesn't slide around, I think, once I start to work on it again. But first, let's strip the wires. You don't really need to take off much. These wires are so little that they're actually smaller than that crimper allows for, so you have to do it with this edge. Just have to be a little bit careful that you don't go too far, and you don't really take off too much of the shielding either, because you don't need much of this wire to connect for it to make a good connection. I always check the shielding to make sure I didn't cut some of the wires. You want to have every wire you can get. And then here we have the black. Oops, it just cut immediately off as soon as I touched it with this blade. Well, that'll work. And then you just take these and spin them so that you have a structurally sound thing that you can easily attach. What I'm going to do is get these kind of twisted a little bit and straightened out. Then I'm going to what they call tin the ends, which is where I apply solder to the ends of it. All right, that should work. Now, you have to be sort of careful, I think, when you do this, because these are little wires and you don't want to damage them, or you don't want to melt the casing that's on them. So I think this is delicately done. I put it in here just to wedge it out in a place where I can work on it in space. Just try to more or less fan them out a bit. Make sure you can see that. Okay, now that you can see it, let's apply a little solder. Try to apply the heat to the wire first, and then draw the solder into it. Oops, helps if you turn it on. Okay, I've got the leads here all spread out, fanned out, so that I can work on them. And all I'm going to do is just touch the soldering iron to the wire, then quickly allow the solder to soak into it. Okay, so newsflash, this pickup won't work. I got a special bolt I thought would work, American standard, that works on DiMarzios and Seymour Duncans, and it is too small. And then I realized that the bolt from the other pickup that it came with was too big. I already knew that, that's why I got these. But then I realized that there's no threads, it doesn't look like, inside these holes. Like this was attached right to the body from the guitar I got it from, so I don't think this is going to work. I've got to decide what I'm going to do for the pickup, or if I'm just going to go ahead and put that pickup back in here. That sure feels like defeat, so I'm going to have to think about this one. Okay, now let's finish installing the tuners. The tuners that I got are these Hipshot tuners. They come with the ability to line them up, back plates like this. Go ahead and install them. One thing I noticed is that when I removed the old tuners, well, first of all, they'll go in the wrong way, but they don't go in the other way. The hole is too small, and what that means is I'm going to have to make that hole bigger. It's just a little bit too small. Doesn't really fit in any of those. But I don't need to do the other side. So to do that, I need a step bit like this, and that gives you the ability to step up the size of the hole very gradually. And I'm just going to go to the next depth on this in each hole, check to make sure I can get a tuner through, and then we'll get started with our installation. Okay, I want to get these tuners laid out. Yeah, they have on the side of them, they have their height. So these are the 19 millimeters. These are 20, 21, 20 to 21. We got the right stuff. And then there's these two base plates, which are used to perfectly position those tuners on the back of the headstock. And then you have this hardware, which comes in around on the other side. It's a washer and a nut that actually inserts inside the tuner. So we get all that stuff out so that it is easy to get to. Okay, well, I realized as I was moving this pickguard around that I broke the connection, the wire actually, at the solder point for the jack here. So not the ground, but the main wire. So I've got to put that back on. That should be fairly easy if I don't. Yeah, really good. Okay, I'm happy with that. Now the next thing I want to do is remove this wire, which is kind of cut along here. The plastic shielding is at least a little bit cut. So I want to remove this wire, see how long it is, and then cut a new one to put on there. Touching there for as little amount of time as possible. I don't like to heat up the components too much. Okay, we're just going to attach this pickguard back on here temporarily. Now notice I have these little painter tape tabs. I do that just so that it's easy to get this on and off without having to deal with screws every time. If we can get it on, the thing is to get these wires down the center, get it all squared and perfect when I come back in. There we go. Good enough. Okay, now we'll just remove this. I'll pull it through the hole. You can see where it's frayed. Okay, so this little piece of wire, I'll go cut a piece about the same length. Just take off a little bit of this. Yeah, solid repaired wire and repaired connection point. Now this thing is all ready for the humbucker. Of course the one I got won't fit, but when I get the new one I'll put it in and we will be done with the electronics. And on to the final steps: lubricating the nut, putting on the strings, getting the saddles set up. And now I'm just going to make the wire which is going to connect from the volume pot ground to the inside cavity. So on this side I'll put an eye, on this side I'll solder it to that. And there you have it. Now I'll connect this as one of the last steps. Just drill a hole inside the cavity. Maybe I'll get that done. I just drilled a hole right inside of there with a very, very fine drill bit. And now I'm just going to put a little more tape over where I drilled because the drill bit slipped around on that end. I want to make sure that I get a good connection on that, so why not just reinforce it? This is, like I said, double-sided conductive tapes. Okay, and there it is, screwed in to the body and grounded. Only thing left to do is install that humbucker and put it back together. Hope I didn't break anything in the process. Now it's been about a week since the last step because I had to order pickups. I ordered Fleor humbucker pickups, which I'll do a complete separate review on, so check out the channel for that. But we'll take a look at them. They arrived, they look great. Zebra pickups, which we're going to put right here. So now I can move forward with the 3 next steps that I'm planning. The first thing is to take off this pickguard. You can see I use painter's tape here. That's a very easy way to just attach and unattach as you're doing these kinds of projects and not have to screw in and unscrew the screws many times. So I'm going to take this pickguard off. I'm going to remove all the hardware. I'm going to take pictures of exactly how it's all wired together first. That's an important step just so you can use as a reference point. Then I'm going to shield the entire inside of this pickguard, acting as a giant antenna to receive interference and spread the signal so that it reduces as much as possible the hum, especially in these single coil pickups, at which point I will put all the hardware back on, and then I'm going to wire in that humbucker, make sure everything's connected. I'll do a couple initial tests before I screw it all back together, and then we are good to go. I will put the strings on, adjust the saddles to get them to the place I need them to be. All right, let's get into the shielding of the pickguard. Now I use this tool, which I found to be great at removing knobs. I haven't used it to adjust the posts, the bridge height on Les Paul style Tunomatic bridges yet, but I'll be using it for that as well. You can see it's got this soft, almost rubber felt surface on the bottom that prevents you from marring up the pickguard, and you can just lift the buttons right off. Woo! That one went airborne. Okay, now that's interesting. I can feel the grittiness, the sand coming off of this. It looks like they did sandblast it with the pickguard on. Interesting. That might explain why the pickguard was unable to be removed without taking the neck off, which is why I modified this thing. Or they put the neck on the body after working on the body, it looks like. Okay, well, now I've got complete shielding. I went ahead and extended the shielding way out on both sides so we'd have a nice big antenna. Ran into some difficulties around these holes, had to retape. I always reuse the cutouts over places just to add more layer, more depth, more physical depth is going to help. So this is double-sided conductive tape, so you don't have to worry about layering it up. I also went in and I just kind of cleaned off this pickguard. It was kind of splotchy, dirty, and I really just with some water and a paper towel and then a dry towel just rubbed it off, and I was able to get off most of the splotchiness, and now I think it looks a little bit better, let's just say. All right, so let's get the hardware back into this. Then we're going to install the Fleor pickup, and we'll get it all screwed back together after some tests. Interesting. All right, so I just noticed that that sand is actually under the pickup cover. So I'm going to clean off these pickup covers. I'm going to actually clean off that blotchiness there. I'm not a fan of that. I think it'll come right off. And I'm also going to clean up these pickups, which look, they've got sand on them. So we'll clean those up to the best of our ability so that we don't have to deal with that moving forward. Okay, so I cleaned up these a little bit. This blotch didn't really come off, but that's fine. Now, let's just dust off these pickups. This one almost feels like it's got a, well, maybe it's wax on it, but it's a little bit slippery. Okay, so I think I might remove these knobs, but we'll do that last thing. I'm going to get this pickup on. We'll test it out real quick with my little Spark Go amp, and then I'm going to put it together. Now here are the pickups that I ended up ordering. And they come wrapped in tinfoil just like a delicious treat. They had good reviews. They're inexpensive pickups. These pickups cost, I think, about $25 for both of them. But they had great reviews, so I'm going to put them in. They're actually able to be coil tapped, which I thought was pretty cool. They come already soldered together, so they did have to work for me. I'm just going to put a little shrink wrap tubing onto this one just to cover it up so it doesn't touch anything. And then on this one, the ground, I'm going to put a sleeve on there just so that most of this is covered up. Then we'll solder them in place. Okay, let's solder this on. Got the soldering iron nice and hot. Good, now look at... Okay, I just finished reconnecting this ground to the inside cavity. It had broken off, so I put a new eye on there. And just checked all the connections, made sure everything was unraveled to the maximum extent. I also tested with my little Spark Go amp to make sure with the screwdriver I just plugged it in and switched the positions and tapped on the pickups, on the magnets, and you can hear if it makes contact and make sure that it's wired and it all works. It all worked. So I'm now going to get this thing screwed back together, get some strings on it. But before I put strings on it, I'm also going to show you how to tune up the nut. Go ahead and secure these together just so it's easier to get back in. Realize that the foil is sticking out just a little bit on the edge there. I hope you will check out Jedi Jingle Maker Shorts, where I'll be playing this guitar and giving you plenty of tone tests. I'm not going to try to tackle that in this video, so just go ahead and look in the shorts. There are a lot to choose from coming up. The next thing I want to do is just work on this nut a little bit. I already went at it just a tad with the X-Acto knife, just ever so lightly, just making sure that with the, not the sharp end of it, but the other side, that if there's any burrs in there, that they get knocked off. You know, you don't want to make channels in here, anything that it can catch on, but if there's anything in these slots that's going to want to catch on strings, just want to knock it off. Now my next skill I want to develop, and if you know how to do this, let me know or can point me to a good video, is I want to learn how to adjust the nut. I'm not there yet, so right now all I do are these kind of primitive smoothing techniques. And one of the things that I kept from when I removed the strings were the ends of the strings so that I could use them as files. I'll show you what I mean. You don't want to overdo this because you don't want to wear the nut down to a place where it's too low. But I just take it and I do a little of this. And you can see there's a little bit of white bone that comes out of that process. Let's just get it completely smooth. This one will fit in here too, and I'm going to use that. See, a little bit of bone shavings came out on that. We'll use the next size down. Very nice. Definitely something that you want to do. Again, just don't overdo it. And even these smaller ones, I just along the top, just a little bit, just in case. Now, these don't have the braid on it, but still they can act as a physical knocker down of things which might be resting in that slot. All right, now this last thing I'm going to do is very important. I'm going to add graphite nut grease to each one of these slots. Decent amount so that they'll be well lubricated and slide as I do hard bends. Okay, this is a simple and inexpensive trick. Toothpick and some graphite nut grease. This is the way I've found is easiest to do it. I just take a toothpick and kind of take some off. Just try and get it started by jamming it down into these nut slots. Just to press it down in there. It's not always that easy to get down in there. Okay, so I put the strings on. I set the saddles to the right string radius using these. The right height. I intonated the guitar. One concern was I almost ran out of room on this saddle to intonate the high E, but I was able to get it without it actually touching the screw. But that was a close call, but it's perfectly intonated across the bridge, which I'm happy. I love the sound of this pickup. Go check out the short videos I'll make with tone demonstrations on this to see how that thing sounds, but I am very happy with it. In terms of the playability, it's unbelievable. The stainless steel frets feel next level after the polishing. The nines on here are absolutely perfect. This bridge is pinned down to the body exactly the way I wanted it to be. It's totally rock solid. I love these saddles. But I still have a few minor modifications I want to make before I call this phase of changes to this done. I do have some future changes planned to it beyond this, but for now this is all I wanted to bite off. I'm going to replace these knobs, and you'll see what I'm going to replace them with here in just a moment, and I'm also going to go ahead and replace this jack because it is not clicking still. It's just not a quality one. I already have a Tone Pros replacement that I can throw right in there, which has double connection points on both parts of the jack. So it's really good, and I'll hear that wonderful click every time, and the cord won't be falling out or easily bumped out of the guitar. Okay, let's remove this plate. Okay, there's the old one, and here is the new one. And you see it's a lot more to it. That's because it clips in two different ways to the jack. Oh wow, this is just a little bit too small. That's interesting. Very unexpected. I suppose I could auger out this pretty easily with the Dremel tool, so I suppose I'll just go ahead and open the space up a little bit with the rotary tool. Fantastic. Alright, this is the new hardware. All right, that's better. Get these leads pointing down. I like that to be nice and snug. Alright, now that gives us a nice firm surface to work on. Okay, first I'm going to get a little solder on the input. In this case I know that the lead that's closest to the output is the positive and the other one is the ground, so I'll attach them accordingly. There we go, two nice pools of solder to work from. And that's how they should look, nice and shiny like that. That means you have the right heat. I'm running at 700 degrees. Okay, so I got a little painter's tape, and that is just to secure my working area so that this thing doesn't move around. This is really key to how I do this stuff because I don't like it when things slide all around. You can't really get a good solder that way. See how it's all lined up now? No problem. So the Firefly FFST Heavy Relic Jedi Jingle Maker Modification Phase 1 is complete, and let me tell you, it was a lot of fun working on this guitar and adding the features that I added in. I encountered some problems along the way which I was able to overcome. The pickguard was one of them. Certainly I had some interesting wiring issues that I had to address. The input jack, output jack also had an issue. So there were a number of things I encountered along the way which I was able to adapt to, which I think is really kind of part of the fun of doing this stuff, which is learning and overcoming challenging problems as you turn an instrument like this, which is not that expensive, into something that is thing of beauty that you will use to express your art with, which to me is absolutely incredible. And by the way, it sounds fantastic, and I hope you'll check out the upcoming shorts on Jedi Jingle Maker where I will be demoing the tones of this beast, but it sounds great. These little Fleor pickups are built to win. They sound so good. I can't believe it. It changed my whole perspective on cheap pickups, inexpensive pickups. Now, one other thing I will add is that I do plan on having a phase 2 of modifications on this, which I hope you will also check out, in which I will do things like a little bit of sanding work on the back of the neck, replacing the 2 single coil pickups with some kind of replacement, redoing the wire, the pots, etc. inside the body of the guitar. So all those things are planned and are going to be a whole ton of fun to do. So I hope you will come back to see that part 2, which I'll probably do in about 2 or 3 months from now, but I'm going to move on to some other guitars. As you can see, this guitar back here, my most recent Firefly purchase, well, that's going to be the next video I'm making, is to show you all about this wonderful guitar, which is also quite the steal. So thanks for watching Jedi Jingle Maker. Don't forget, hit that like button, subscribe. Let me know what you think.